There is a pit in the stomach of most occupational therapists in private pay practice when, you get on the phone with a prospective client and the client asks that dreaded question, do you accept my insurance? Right? You can almost hear the nails on the chalkboard or the record scratches and just comes to a stop. But how you answer this question can be all of the difference between booking the client right then and there or stumbling through the conversation very awkwardly and the client saying something like, okay, maybe I'll do some investigation and I'll call you back, only to never hear from them again. So I am going to show you how to confidently answer this question in this video. But stick around until the end because I'm going to share with you what I think is the number one thing that you need to do ahead of time in your private pay practice before this conversation even takes place so that you are actually attracting clients who will gladly pay out of pocket for your services, thereby making this question almost irrelevant. So I'm Doug Vestal, and I help OTs just like you start and grow thriving private pay practices. And I make these videos based on what we've learned owning our own private pay practice so that you can have that success you want, but faster. And look, I totally get it. Having the conversation about, whether or not you accept insurance is really, it's got to be one of the most nerve-wracking conversations that you're going to have with your client as an OT. It is really right up there with telling them what your prices are. I mean, for most occupational therapists that I know, these two conversations are so fraught with emotion that you can start to feel a cold sweat break out just thinking about it. You start to stammer, you start to stutter, and in the back of your mind, you have this big fear of rejection from the client that is weighing on you, the entire time you're talking. And so what ends up happening, right? You end up over-explaining. You end up sounding nervous. Your voice starts squeaking, right? Or suddenly you get incredibly serious and you don't know how to keep the rapport going with the client when you start talking about, all of the quote unquote business stuff that you're supposed to talk to them about. But here's the problem. This lack of confidence shines through to your potential client, right? If you don't sound confident in addressing this question, then the client is going to start to doubt your ability to help them, right? They can sense that something is off. So you want to get super confident in how you answer this question. And the first step in getting super confident is really simple, creating a script for yourself ahead of time on how you're going to answer this question. And you want to practice this script and all of its variations ahead of time, right? Practicing what you're going to say, how you'll answer, the follow-up questions. It's critical to getting that confidence, but also really dialing in what you're going to say to make sure that it's most impactful to your potential client. So let's talk about two scenarios and the ways in which you could respond, all right? The first scenario is something like the following, right? Someone calls you and just immediately asks you, do you accept insurance, right? In this case, you really want to resist the urge to answer the question immediately. You haven't even established a relationship with them, right? You don't even know if what they're dealing with is something that you can actually help them with. So from the clinical perspective, put the insurance question at the end of the line, right? Your clinical skills, your ability to help the person, which is what you're actually there for, has nothing to do with insurance, right? So instead, what you can say is something, similar to this, right? Well, look, how we work with our patients or clients is totally different than what you've probably experienced before. We do something that's very unique. It's a very tailored service. But before we get into that, I want to make sure that what you have going on is something that our practice can help you with. So tell me about what you're dealing with right now, right? Or something similar to that with your OT specialty, right? Adapt it for you, right? The point is, though, you want to get them talking about their problem, why they are actually seeking your OT services. Getting them to open up about their problem is important for two reasons, right? Number one, you want to make sure you are actually a good fit for them, that you are actually qualified to help them with whatever problem they have, right? Otherwise, you could refer them to someone else. Number two, once you know that it is actually something you can help them with, at that point, you can start to build a relationship with them, right? Talk to them about, what they're dealing with is something that your practice actually specializes in, right? Talk to them about how you've had similar clients who've had similar problems that you have actually helped in the past, right? You want to build up confidence that your practice is the one for them. And then, and only then, bring the conversation back to insurance, right? Ask them what insurance they have. Let's say they have Aetna, right? What you could say is something like this, right? I've worked with a lot of clients like you who have had Aetna, but I do charge upfront for my services, and I provide you with the receipt at the end of each of our sessions that you can submit to Aetna for reimbursement according to your out-of-network insurance plan benefits, right? It's simple, it's direct. And you have to practice saying this very confidently, saying it with, poise, right? Practice saying it in the mirror. Practice having a friend playing the scenario with you and you responding in the different iterations, right? With practice, you will get a lot more confident. And the second scenario is really kind of more of a follow-up, right? So let's say that you've already established the rapport with the client, which is super important. And let's say you've already given them the previously prepared but very brief speech. Sometimes that brief speech is enough, right? The client may actually already be familiar with paying out of pocket and submitting receipts. But other clients, they're going to have more questions, right? Maybe questions on logistics or more of a question that's really like, well, why can't I just pay you my copay and you file with my insurance yourself, right? And in that case, it is an opportunity for you to really draw a contrast between what you do by not accepting insurance versus what they could get elsewhere, right? Many clients don't understand the difference. So drawing that contrast is actually really important, right? And putting that contrast in terms of their goals is super important. So you'll have to adapt this to your specific specialty, but it would go something like this, right? The work I do is very custom and completely tailored to you. I'm taking an entire holistic look at you and getting you back to doing the things that are meaningful to you. And to do that, what I found is that I need to spend a full hour uninterrupted with you. I want you to get better as quickly as I can, right? And from a clinical perspective, my dedication is to my patients, right? Not the insurance company. And since I'm out of network, I get to do what I feel is clinically best. A lot of my competitors do accept insurance, and because of this, they have to see 3, sometimes 4 clients an hour, while I get to spend an entire hour with you, completely undistracted. And I think that that's better for your progress and your goals. And I give you a bill at the end to submit to your insurance company, right? Creating that contrast works really well, right? You are demonstrating that you care for their well-being, right? By the choices that you've made on how you run your business. All right. So those are some of the ways in which you can answer that dreaded question, do you take insurance, right? And start to feel very confident about it. But I want to take it a step further and say that a lot of people overlook a simple way to make sure that this goes a lot more smoothly by attracting the right clients, right? And that step is really how you're positioning yourself and your practice ahead of time, okay? The insurance question really isn't a big deal if ahead of time they are already convinced that you are the right person to solve their problem. In that case, they have already convinced themselves that you are the OT for them, right? The insurance discussion and even the pricing discussion actually becomes secondary because they believe so powerfully that you are the one for them, that they have convinced themselves that they want to work with you no matter what, right? And you will get a lot of pushback on insurance if most of your calls coming in are what I would describe as cold, right? And what I mean by cold is, someone has a problem, they're told they needed to see an OT, and they just call you up because they found your information on Google, right? For those people, insurance will be one of the first things that they ask about, right? And for them, it could actually be a screening criteria. But contrast that to someone who is warm, right? Someone who is warm is maybe someone you met at a local community event where you were a sponsor there, right? And you handed out a great piece of free education to them. And then that person started watching the educational videos that you've been posting about your specialty, right? And then from these educational videos, then they attended a community workshop that you hosted, right? By the time that person calls you, they already know, like, and trust you, right? You have given them so much value on their problem before you ever even charge them anything, right? You've already established yourself as an expert in their eyes, and you have a massive amount of credibility when it comes to them. When that person calls you, they have pretty much already convinced themselves to actually book with you. It's just a question of logistics, right? Dealing with warm potential clients in your occupational therapy practice is night and day to dealing with cold potential clients, right? Cold potential clients, you will feel like you have to convince them, which is not going to feel good at all, right? In contrast, warm potential clients won't need much convincing at all. They will have already convinced themselves. And this all comes back to the OT practice marketing that you're doing, right? And if you are struggling with your OT practice marketing, then make sure that you aren't making the same mistakes that I outline in this video right here.